a little bit.
I bought some saltwater taffy.
Oh my goodness.
Let's see here, delicious 50% off saltwater taffy. I also bought
That's good.
a giant bag of atomic fireballs. So,
Wow.
ever had atomic fireballs?
I don't think I have, actually.
Just based on the
Really?
name alone, I would never have atomic fireballs.
Yeah.
It's just a cinnamon jawbreaker.
I hate cinnamon.
Oh,
Like the little
Really?
hearts at
the little
Valentine's.
red
I can't stand them.
Yep.
Ah.
Mostly because I hate love, but also cinnamon.
Well, it's too bad. It's too bad. Ba-dibba-dabba. So what's up?
Nothing.
Good.
Everyone recording?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Recording things?
I am recording on my microphone. I am doing it right from my home. Can you feel the love in the air? It's Player One Podcast 497.
Okay.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Reading this Lionhead thing, the whole Tamagotchi incident just sounds like something that joke Twitter account would have come up with.
Yeah, it really does. It does.
Oh,
What would Molly do?
man.
Exactly.
Amazing.
All right. Everybody ready?
Eight.
Yes. I hope that if we talk about the Lionhead story, that we do get some Milo from Phil.
We definitely will
Why
talk about the line.
Yeah.
This guy clearly hasn't been listening to the show ever.
Alrighty, ready to go. We're going to do clap
Yeah.
first. One of them clap things. Alright.
Okay.
What?
What?
You ready, Phil?
I'm ready.
Clap with the saltwater taffy in your hands or something? Alright. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
So good.
Perfect clap. Once
So
again.
good.
Continuing our streak.
Yes.
Hello and welcome to episode 497 of the Player One Podcast for Tuesday, May 17th, 2016. I'm your host, Chris Johnston. With me, as always, from Canada, Mr. Greg Stewart.
I'm just doing my last-minute research for the show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What are you looking up there?
I'm reading one of the articles CJ linked.
I've been trying to put stuff up earlier and earlier in case you guys
That
actually
doesn't mean I'll get to it earlier and earlier.
check it. Then you can get you can have some show prep. You know.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason to start doing that after 10 years.
Yeah, I know.
500 episodes.
Clearly, it's worked fine the way it is.
Why fix what ain't broken?
I guess you're right. And
Yeah.
joining me from the great state of California, a man who just raided a candy store, Mr. Phil Theobald.
Local candy shop going out of business. I took
Yeah.
the boy into downtown to get a haircut today, and barbershop was right by the candy shop, so of course I was going to swing by and grab a little something, but then there's a big sign plastered in the window, 50% off. Means I got twice as much as I'd planned to get. The math works out.
Of course it does. Sugar rush ahead.
Yep.
And also joining us from the great state of California, Mr. Ethan Einhorn. Hello.
Hey guys, yeah, I hear you with the candy store going down. We had an amazing one in Half Moon Bay that had the best fudge. Phil, I think you had it before, yeah.
Yes, I did, and it was outstanding.
Yep. So that died, and just last week my comic book store died, which is a terrible, terrible thing.
Now, when your candy store shut down, did you go over there and buy a bunch of candy before they shut it down?
It was like just before Halloween. It was great.
Oh, nice. So did you get a lot of the fudge?
I did. Yes.
Did you pack it away? Save it for later.
Well, we're in the Bay Area and when in Robe,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fudge is popular in the Bay Area. It's we have Ghirardelli chocolates. Chocolate's really popular, you know.
Good.
See's chocolates.
Yeah.
Very popular local favorite.
Like that peanut brittle. Good stuff. All right,
The
speaking of closing down.
bread bowl in
What?
Speaking of
the
closing
bread
down,
bowls with
closing
the
up shop.
crab. Yeah.
You done?
Are you gonna let me riff? Are you gonna let me go?
No, I'm not.
I'm coked up like Robin Williams and ready to throw out some zingers.
Oh, too soon.
Not cool, man.
Too soon.
What? He was high on cocaine a lot back in the 80s.
And 90s.
And the
And
aughts.
aughts.
Probably the 70s too, a bit. Sure.
All right, speaking of closing down.
Ooh, what do we got?
Let's get it out of the way. Disney Infinity.
Yeah.
Going away.
300 people.
Yeah, that
Disney
sucks.
closing down the Avalanche studio that worked on Disney Infinity. It's an internal studio, not to be confused with the Avalanche that does Just Cause. Different studio.
Really? I didn't even know that.
First of the acts to really be taught all of Toys to Life, 2-3 weeks ago?
I only heard like
Yeah, a tiny bit of that.
a tiny bit of that. Can you repeat that?
Sure. Yeah, if you remember, 2-3 weeks ago, we actually were talking about the demise of Toys to Life.
That's true.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is we caused this.
Yep, and what's great is that Disney Infinity apparently was, of the Toys to Life, the best-selling Toys to Life.
Yeah, it eclipsed Skylanders this past holiday.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that was
Wow.
because of Star Wars, right?
Oh, most assuredly.
I believe
So.
it was.
Yeah.
I think it actually, in the article you linked, CJ, it actually says that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And not only is Disney Infinity going away, but Disney is closing out their video game publishing business.
Don't they do this or some form of this every few years? Like, I'm totally serious because, like, remember BlackRock Studios and Split Second, and then that came out and was a hit, and suddenly it's like, oh, by the way, we're shutting these studios down because we're not doing video game publishing anymore. Yes. And then Disney Infinity comes along, and it's like, but didn't you just say you weren't doing video game publishing anymore?
You will never tell.
They did exactly that, like, while this podcast was going. I think we talked about it on the show.
This is like Hideo Kojima saying this is the last Metal Gear.
Yeah.
5 in a row.
But this time, I guess we'll see if they mean it.
We mean it this time.
In another 5 years. But instead, they're going to lean on other publishers doing Star Wars-related games. And
makes total sense. They've got some of the most exciting licenses in the world, so...
Yeah, I think this is a case of basically, we were the most successful Toys to Life thing, but we spent all that money. Like, we can basically just sit back and license out our characters and properties and take no risk and make a bunch of money also. So
they should get Sega to make another Iron Man game.
Well, but I mean, that's the thing is they're getting guys like Respawn and Visceral and really talented AAA developers to do the Star Wars stuff, just as an example, and I don't think would be able to build teams of that caliber to get those types of games out in line with the big movie releases.
Very true. Do you think this will mean that we'll see, movie tie-in games, or will it be things like Star Wars Battlefront, where, yes, it's a Star Wars game, but it's sort of timed to release when there's a new Star Wars movie out, but it's not directly related?
I think the latter.
Yeah, because the thing is there's so much more... There's so much more credibility with that. You look at Batman as a similar situation where, remember, Pandemic was going to be doing one based on the Chris Nolan movies, but what fans, I think, really wanted was a cool, dark Batman game that existed meaningfully on its own. And that's better for the publishers, too, because once you move from the Christopher Nolan stuff to, the Ben Affleck stuff, the game stuff is still completely distinct.
Right. And you don't have to rely on people liking the movie to like the game. The game can stand on its own.
Yeah.
Plus, you're also not locked into all the ridiculousness that goes along with doing a movie game. Like, what is the plot? You have to hit sort of the beats from the movie.
Release date,
terrible thing, and also do you have to worry about sort of your assets smashing up and all that, like, and I'm sure there's a lot of limitation on what you actually get to see and do before the movie's released. So, just a gigantic pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Don't look an awestruck. What?
Ass.
What?
Ass.
Oh, okay.
Ass. Snap me right out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess what do we think this means for Toys to Life? Does this mean that Lego Dimensions is next? Does it mean that Nintendo's going to should get out of Amiibo? Is this a Plastic Instruments thing for the mid 2010s?
I think in the short term, it's going to be a bunch of people scrambling to try to fill that void and pick up as many customers as possible.
Well, I also think that the Amiibos are interesting to look at as being differentiated because those tie to multiple games, and that I think is a really cool, unique thing. You're buying the Amiibos principally because they're cool toys, and it's a great value add that they also unlock stuff in Twilight Princess or Smash Brothers, and you can only assume that they're going to double down with next gen technology on Amiibo integration. That I think that may be harder though. The Skylanders games, and certainly for Lego Dimensions. But again, as we discussed before, that's real quick, and I just haven't heard a lot of enthusiasm for that outside of its initial launch month, even though they're really solid experiences.
And outside of Phil, who has bought all of the Lego Dimensions toys.
I don't know how that happened, but it did. I don't know how. And there's apparently more on the way.
Really?
Yeah. It sounds like there's rumors going around now that we're gonna get a whole mess of new Lego Dimensions properties, including Adventure Time and Sonic the Hedgehog, of all things.
So, are they saying those are going to be new levels then, or just new characters?
Don't know yet. Don't know. Yeah, but that's the big rumor going around now.
I mean, I really enjoy Lego Dimensions. I still haven't finished it yet, but I'm very close, and I've ended up buying a lot of the different packs. The collection of figures that I have over there on the counter is a little bit ridiculous. Not as bad as Phil, but it's pretty close.
Not as ridiculous as me.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I really liked what they did with that, and I sort of liked how they sort of brought in the way they connected the real world and the game world. And also, I really liked actually the way that they sort of, yes, you do need to buy the toys, but at the same time, pretty quickly they switch the game around so that you don't need to buy the toys.
Right.
Which is weird, but I think it's I like to think that people saw sort of the fairness in that, which is really nice, because when you get to a section in the game, originally when the game came out, you get to a section that, like, say there was a crack in the wall and normally you needed like a superpowered character like Superman or Homer if he's in his sort of angry state, you'd need to have that figure come in the game and punch that wall, and that was kind of how they forced you. They were monetizing the game, but I think within a couple months, you got to that point where it's like you need one of these figures, and they give you the list, and then it'd say, but if you just want to rent one of those figures in game right now, you can do that too, just using the studs that you collected in that level, which is like, yeah, that's brilliant.
No, I think Lego Dimensions being a more platform approach works better than what happened with Disney Infinity, where I got into it with 3.0, and then the 1.0 and 2.0 figures could only be used in the toy box mode, which wasn't really something that my daughter.
Oh yeah, that's something we discussed a lot.
Yeah,
not being able to mix the brands.
Yeah,
and it's just it was, I think, all the more infuriating because you look at something like Lego Dimensions where it's a bunch of different brands from a bunch of different places, but they're still mixing it all. Where it's like then you got Disney Infinity, and Disney owned everything in that game.
Yeah,
and for some reason they were limited to what they could put where.
Or they didn't want to.
Yeah, well, that's the reason they limited themselves. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think though, at this huge press with all publishers to get into more of a games as a service model. On the one hand, I will never in my life buy a $99 bundle of coins, but on the other, when it comes to actually buying physical goods, I become much more comfortable monetizing much deeper in a game. So if you count all of the amiibos up, I have, as I've mentioned before on the show, spent more than $500 on Smash Brothers. And that's the only game I've ever spent that much money on. And the only way you're going to get someone like me comfortable spending at that level is if you put physical goods into the equation.
Yeah.
So, Ethan.
Yeah.
What do you, regarding the Toys to Life, what do you think is the critical path for this particular subgenre of gaming?
I like the slideshow we get every time Ethan talks to us.
Downloading some torrents, clearly.
Yeah, clearly.
I did want to say, I think E3 is going to be very interesting to see, like, is there any more LEGO stuff announced there? Do we get any sort of hint at Amiibo 2.0? Or when the NX is finally revealed, do we get any Amiibo news with that, too?
Yeah, I would imagine that's going to be one of the first things they're going to want to touch on. And what's interesting also with the Amiibo is, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but where I'm super excited if I see like a Little Mac or something like that in the stores. I just was finally able to get Villager this week, something that's based on one of the core characters that I really like. When they go into the minutia on brands that I am neutral to indifferent on, like all the Animal Crossing characters, I just am not going to pick all of this up. It's not that I dislike them, it's just that they're not worth, $14 each to me. What do you think when they start stretching deep into that kind of territory?
I love it. Some of my favorite Amiibo are the ones from the catalog, Nintendo like deep in the catalog, like the Earthbound character, Ness, and then Lucas, and Chibi Robo, and the Rob Robot, and Duck Hunt, and Mr. Game & Watch. Like those are my favorite Amiibo.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It's one other question I have about Toys to Life is that since I've been following the Amiibo stuff really closely, it's kind of fun to see when you've started collecting at a certain point, some of the figures that were pretty commonplace when you started now impossible to find, like Samus.
Yep.
But is it the same thing with Disney Infinity and Skylanders, where there are just some of them that are impossible to find now?
Disney Infinity was like that when I was paying attention to it, but I don't know if that's the case anymore.
Yeah, Skylanders was the same, at least during like the first two games when I was playing Skylanders. There was definitely one or two characters per wave that were super tough to find.
The other thing with Disney Infinity is they had all those power discs, and they were all blind bagged.
Oh, I hated
that's
that.
Right. That's right.
So yeah, there was like that was a big thing.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
All right, let's talk about this Lionhead article from Eurogamer. If you've been following the news, you may know that Fable developer Lionhead was shut down a month ago, 2 months ago, something like that now. And so Eurogamer has been talking to some of the people who were let go, and they've sort of compiled a history of Lionhead piece with a bunch of really fun anecdotal stories, both about the company's successes and their failures on things, including the Milo Connect demo, everybody's favorite.
Boy, now what's that there? Talking about failures? Milo's not a failure. He's a bold experiment. A brave new world of artificial intelligence. What?
Which, by the way, I didn't realize the Milo and Kate. So the premise of the game is you were supposed to be playing as this child's imaginary friends as his parents fight in the background.
Yeah,
I found that completely interesting.
That sounds so much like a Peter Molyneux idea.
And why would you
Mom
want
and Dad?
that? Sounds so depressing.
Why are you having to fight, Mum? Mum, why are you fighting with Dad so much? I've got to go outside. I've got to play.
This picture of a tree.
What's funny in the
play with Drop Dead Fred is what I'm doing. What?
What's funny in the article was they were talking about Microsoft apparently they're concerned about what happens when you like flash your knob at my lower. How does he respond to that?
Would you like to know what happens?
Before reading it in this article, that did not even cross my mind. Not even.
It's funny because it probably crossed thousands of minds.
It probably did. No.
If you throw it, I'll catch it off screen.
Really great article, especially I think around the development of Fable Legends. And as Ethan, you were sort of talking, service being like a big hot topic in the games industry now, how Fable Legends kind of came about because of Microsoft's mandate that game as live services.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And it sounded in the article like Fable Legends was the game no one at Lionhead wanted to make. And that was probably what boomed it above anything else. Because when you're looking at games as a service stuff, the ones that are successful, whether or not you make them, are usually done by a core team that really gets the content and really understands what the customers want. The ones that fail are the ones that are made by people that want to make a traditional game and are being forced to make something that is games as a service. So I can only imagine that it would not have been successful. And it sounds like they weren't putting the hooks in to make it successful. They wanted to do Fable 4, and frankly, that's the game that I would have bought day one if it had come out. I'm really disappointed as a fan that we'll apparently never get that, because I loved all the other Fables and would be eager to get a next-gen Fable game. And it sounds like that's what they actually wanted to make.
Yeah, this the Lionhead piece doesn't really inspire confidence in another great Xbox franchise that's being brought back, which is Crackdown. I'm still worried about Crackdown and Crackdown 3. I'm sure we'll hear about it at E3, but that whole multiplayer version launching in the summer thing has me really worried about that one.
Yeah.
Well, though ultimately Microsoft, that they have seemed to recognize that console players don't want this kind of death by 1,000 cuts, games as a service thing, because when they launched stuff like the Forza 5 and Rise, they had all those microtransactions in there, and they reconfigured a lot of those for those games, and then really put the kibosh on adding those to games like Tomb Raider or Halo. I know that there was some stuff in Halo, but it was pretty minimal and only tied to one mode.
I think that has more to do with Phil Spencer taking over.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because it was Don Matrick that was probably pushing that.
That was during the Don Matrick. I mean, that's part and parcel with the whole sort of redirection of the Xbox One business model in general, right? I mean, because Matrick, when he was running it, I mean, that's when we were hearing about, being able to sell your digital games and all this other junk that sounded kind of interesting, but really half-baked.
I would separate out microtransactions from games being a live service in terms of games like The Division or even Star Wars Battlefront or Overwatch, which is coming out soon.
Yeah.
Those games where the companies are planning to provide content, whether it's free or expansion pack-based stuff, like has been seen with Destiny. Like I think there are some big players in that space. I think.
Yeah, but it's not Microsoft.
It's right. It's not Microsoft, and it really does matter that it's a fit for the game that's being put on offer, I guess. And if it's something like Fable, where people wanted a traditional Fable and not a MOBA style boss fight type thing, then. I think the game concept in that case failed rather than it being games as a service, which I look at anyway more as extended content for either a single player or a multiplayer game.
Well, I think also you're talking about the different expectations of different audiences, where I think most core gamers are very savvy and are going to be adding up. All right, if you're going to be charging me a microtransaction level, I know that this is going to be an extraordinarily bad value, and you're trying to get thousands of dollars out of me. And that doesn't work for core gamers, but more casual gamers, it seems to work with FIFA on console.
Sure.
But that is not the Fable audience. Yeah, they're not. I think that they're not audience members that are as used to looking at the ultimate value proposition as core gamers are. So it's easier for them to kind of get into the loop of microtransactions. I think that's why it works on mobile as well. They're just not looking at the final price the way a traditional or console gamer will.
Yeah, I wish we had more of a window on how the free-to-play games that are offered on console are doing. I think, for instance, I've heard that GTA 5 is the online mode there is spectacularly successful, and that does have microtransactions.
Yeah, and I believe that Ultimate Team in FIFA is actually massively well. I think that the actions of EA in the last few years prove that it's been massively successful because they put it in every game to the point that the first NHL game that came out on the new consoles, they stripped out almost everything else, but they made sure to get the Ultimate Team in there.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the way I look at it. Of course, I'd rather it's not in the game at all. But if it has to be in the game, then I'm willing to tolerate it if it is completely separate from the $60 single-player experience that you're getting. So you look at something like Metal Gear Solid 5, and it has all of that junk. It's basically like Clash of Clans in the multiplayer mode, and that's not something I want to play, but to the game's credit, it also gave me a 60-hour single-player experience that has nothing to do with that, and I was able to skip that content entirely. So it's there for the people that want it, but it's not forced on you if you don't want it. And I think the problem with something like Forza 5 was that it was forced on you as the.
But it wasn't really forced on you in Forza 5. It was always in your face, but you never had to do it.
It was part of the economy, though. I'm saying that, like, when you look at Metal Gear, the part that they were trying to get an unlimited spend model put into that was totally separate from the single-player campaign. And I think that's a way to do it.
Yeah, I suppose. I wonder personally if, like I said, I think that. See, you keep bringing up Forza 5, but really in Forza 5, microtransactions were sort of a nuisance. They weren't required. They were technically part of the experience, but they really weren't because you didn't need to do it. And it wasn't a super crazy grind. There were tons of other problems with that game. I think it felt more like insult to injury in that game because that game was way too small compared to the previous ones. And then so on top of the fact that they offered very little content, very little compared to what players of the previous games were expecting. And on top of that, it's like, oh, by the way, give us money. Like constantly. I think it was part of a larger issue. I'm curious, as far as you're talking about Fable Legends go, and then we were talking earlier about Quantum Break being down to $40 already, and so hearing some really, really low sales numbers for that game, and then the whole thing about like Forza moving over to PC. I'm curious if Fable Legends being shut down isn't part of a larger shift in Microsoft to move away from console gaming, or at least make sure PC is a bigger thing. And the reason why I'm saying that is because for Fable Legends, especially where it was so close to being done from everything that we've heard, one of the only real reasons to kill it is because you're not going to have the install base to keep it running.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean
although with Fable Legends, Windows 10 players can play against Xbox players. True. That was one of the big things.
I just think that, like, and you're talking about Crackdown coming out as well. Mm-hmm. Just that it seems like their first-party exclusives aren't performing.
Yeah.
And you gotta wonder, like, are they gonna? I don't know. It makes me feel like there'll be a shift away from consoles after the one.
Remember, they're still talking about the 1.5, right?
Well,
talking about
what form does Xbox 1.5 take? Does it take the form of a redesigned console, or is it going to be part of a campaign to push people towards Windows 10 and bring the Xbox brand more centrally into Windows 10?
Windows 10.
I think they even call did they call it the Xbox Game Store? I mean, they're calling it Xbox.
Well, they tried that before. Live for Windows and all that stuff.
Yeah,
that didn't work out so
they
well.
tried it before, and I find it interesting that they would do that, considering on the PC, at least in my opinion, you're not going to bring down Steam.
Right.
Like you may.
No, they need to coexist with Steam.
You may be number 2 to Sony, but then moving over to the PC side, it doesn't seem like there's a great road to the top there either.
Well, and also, much has been said about the Xbox One actually having a higher install base relative to the Xbox 360 in its same life cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it might not be performing on the level of PS4, but it's not an unsuccessful machine, I don't think. It is.
You know what's more important? The thing is that whether it's a higher install base than the 360 or whether it's performing as well relative to the PS4 as the 360 to the PS3, what's important is what their projections were.
Right.
Yeah.
How did they think it was going to be performing right now? And every indication seems to point that it's not doing as well as they expected it to. And I think that's borne out through when you're hearing about that their first party exclusives are not hitting. They're just not hitting.
Well, and it's also a double-edged sword what they had to do when Phil Spencer came in. I think they did all the right things, but the problem with it is they basically just turned it into a slightly less powerful PS4.
Yes.
With different exclusives, and that's not a good position to be in. I wasn't interested in the messaging that Don Matrick had with this is a machine that does everything. I thought that was targeting everyone but me, but at least it was different.
For sure, I agree with that 100%. I think that it definitely had a real identity under Matrick. I think it was the wrong identity.
Yep.
I think everything that's happened, I should say, since Spencer sort of took over, were all the right moves, but it's just sort of placed it in this sort of position that I personally, and I don't know I have no insight into this, but I personally don't think Microsoft expected to be in.
Yeah.
And I think that more than anything else, that's the reason why I question, is this their last console? And I normally hate sort of the doom and gloom of this sort of thing, because for how many years have we been hearing the death of consoles? But I really do feel like we are hitting a tipping point here. And I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think what's interesting to look at with the market is you have basically 3 profiles of spenders. You have the enthusiasts, which would be guys like us that will go and buy all the consoles and multiple games a month. You have the casual players who will either not spend anything at all or they'll buy 1 or 2 games. They're the guys who buy just Grand Theft Auto or just Tony Hawk or whatever, Madden Football, right? And then you have on the other end of the spectrum the people who are the gamblers, who will spend tons and tons of money in a single game, and that's another way to monetize. And those 2 poles, if you're an enthusiast or if you're a gambler, they balance out the casual audience. And I think Microsoft underestimated the importance of the enthusiasts, overestimated the viability of the gamblers, and isn't really reaching many people in that casual space in between, because those guys, if they're going to buy a console at all, are probably going to buy a PS4.
Yeah. Well, now I think in the casual space, I think there are maybe some hardcore gamers that are becoming casual in the sense that they may play Call of Duty or Battlefield or The Division, and that is their one game. Just like sports gamers,
casual players, I feel like they're not buying consoles anymore.
That could be. That could be.
Yeah, because if you think about the rationale for getting a PS2 was to get a DVD player as much as anything else. The rationale for the PS3 was Blu-ray. What
Blu-ray players are cheap now, so.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, what is the rationale for a casual person to pick up a PS4? And let's be honest, the experiences of Xbox One and PlayStation 4 are not actually very different than the experiences you got on 360 and PS3. They don't even look that different, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, they're an evolution of it, but that's it.
If you're getting a console for things other than gaming, I mean, at this point, if you have an Xbox 360, it still plays Netflix. If you have,
See, that's the thing.
You have like 5 things in your house that'll run Netflix.
That's exactly it. And you talk about casual gaming. I mean, everybody has a smartphone now.
Yeah.
So everybody has what they need for casual gaming in their pockets all the time when they're out. You don't need that, and yeah, Netflix, same thing. Like the device you have in your pocket will play Netflix, or the iPad you have, or the Apple TV, or the Roku, or whatever you have. Like,
right.
You're right. You've got a dozen devices that play. I have so many devices in this house that'll play Netflix.
Even your TV probably will have.
Your smart TV will play Netflix.
Has a Netflix and Hulu player built right in, so you don't even need a console or any sort of box.
Yeah.
I do want to move on to talking about Polygon and Doom.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so
this has ignited some interesting talk on the internet. So the basic story is Doom came out on Friday, the 13th, and Bethesda did not send review copies out to press outlets beforehand.
Yeah.
They basically got it exactly at the same time consumers did. And so, like many other outlets, Polygon did a video that's the first 30 minutes of Doom, and the person that have playing it is definitely a little rusty on first-person shooters, and this may have been the first-person shooter that they played. And that got noticed by the internet, of course, and criticized all to heck. On GAF and whatnot, and that's the story.
Yes.
So I really wonder though if this is the case of so Bethesda didn't send out codes until release day. Is it one of those things where there are so many other games coming out? I mean, Uncharted 4 just came out last week. You had Battleborn. You had the Overwatch beta. You had like a lot of big sort of high-profile games coming out all at the beginning of May. If the fact that they didn't get advanced code, if it went to just a freelancer because the other editors were busy doing other things, or there was a perception that since Doom didn't send out advanced codes, maybe it's not a very good game, so we can just give it to our C-tier writing list and we'll have them do the video.
So here's my take on this. I remember there was a similar situation where Dana Jungor did the review for either God of War 1 or 2, and the game was too tough for her, and she did end up having to get some help from some other folks in the office to complete it. And on the one hand, I think the review then reads totally reasonably for somebody who's a more casual consumer who might find these games hard, and this is a good reflection of that. It would be very similar to my reviewing a Madden game, right? Where it's not going to be Chris Baker reviewing it, who plays it every single year, or Greg Ford. It would be somebody who doesn't follow football and is looking at the game just on the terms of, as somebody who's not an enthusiast, is this still fun? If it's qualified as such and it's understood where the perspective is coming from, I think it's totally fair. On the other hand, I think that if that's not qualified, then it's going to be tough because you're going to have a disconnect with the audience you're trying to reach, and they're not going to understand where it's coming from in terms of perspective and player experience.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think there is a place for a review or an opinion from somebody who doesn't normally play in that genre. I think a day one video of the first 30 minutes of a game probably be done by someone who is familiar with the franchise or familiar with first-person shooters. If any of their editorial staff looked at this video, it does not take long to surmise that the person playing does not know what they're doing. I mean, there are a couple really bad sequences where they're not controlling the right stick to adjust the camera at all, and they're just letting enemies hit them. And there isn't a whole lot of weapon switching going on, and there's also sequences where they're trying to hit enemies that are 300 meters away with a shotgun. Like, it's just like basic first-person shooter elements that anyone who is familiar with the genre would know is bad.
Yeah.
And if you're going to let this thing loose on the internet, it's going to make you look bad.
Haven't we established over the past months that Polygon isn't good crap if they look bad? I mean, my God, Arthur Geese is one of their spokespeople.
Well, what's their response been?
This is an accident, but
that was
How
the
did they
response.
respond to the criticism?
They haven't made a response because Doom came out on Friday. This thing didn't actually begin blowing up until Friday night, and everybody's been gone for the weekend. So there has been no response. The responses they took off. They turned off comments on the YouTube version of the video.
Yeah, of course they did.
Yeah. and Arthur Geese came out and said that it was not him playing.
Well, that's good. At least you know that's some teamwork right there.
He wanted that to be known. That
I know that's what I would do for anyone on my team if they screwed up. The first thing I would do is make sure the internet knows it wasn't my fault.
Wasn't me.
But I think also if you're the editor assigning this out to a freelancer, your first question to that freelancer is, are you familiar with the Doom franchise?
I would be shocked if this was done by a freelancer. But you know what? Honestly, for me, this also seems like much ado about nothing. I can't, I thought I was waiting for you to say, this is the review of the game, or something a little more important than just the first 30 minutes. I mean, yeah, okay, maybe this person sucks, but I don't know. I mean, is it really that big a deal?
No.
Yeah, I think that some sites are better than others at providing context. I do like, for instance, also to know, when it comes to reviews, how much of the game the person has completed.
Well, they finished it. You can't write a review unless you finish it.
Everyone always finishes it, always.
Yeah. You know that, even. You did EGM reviews, you know. Are you saying you didn't finish some of the games you reviewed for EGM?
What? Tell us what the ending was for Austin Powers' Welcome to My Evil Lair. What happens in that ending?
Man, our entire relationship is built on false pretenses.
We got to go back and print a retraction.
For a lot of reviews. A lot of crappy Game Boy Color reviews.
To be totally fair, I did finish and saw the ending to Blade 2 on Game Boy Color, so...
And you think that makes everything okay?
Yeah, it does.
How much did you get paid for that review?
Oh, don't worry, it wasn't much.
I don't remember. It was like $75 or something like that.
It was like my pocket change.
Oh, man. Was that $75 worth your time to get to the ending of
Blade 2? I remember that Activision had a press release for that game, and they internally were saying, and they put this in the press release, that the game was fantastic.
Yeah. I would.
PR right there. I love it.
I get it.
Hey, and to EGM's credit, at least we didn't just reprint the press release as other companies may have in the past.
No, we were more classy than that. We paraphrased the press releases. We didn't just reprint them.
Yeah.
Right.
Was it good, Ethan?
No. Oh, it's terrible.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't as good as Little Nicky on Game Boy.
Wait. Blade for Game Boy Color was developed by HAL?
Blade 2 is what I played.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at this is, I guess, the first Blade, maybe? I don't know.
Weird.
There were multiple Blade games on Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be weird to call it Blade 2.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Doom, I saw an Instagram picture from Mr. John Davison of the Xbox One version of Doom, and it was telling him that there was an update available for Doom, and that update was 47 gigs in size.
Amen.
Oh,
wow.
Which I believe is the size of the entire game.
I believe it's the size of the entire internet.
Well, I don't want to spoil this for you, CJ.
Uh-huh.
It's actually it's Doom 2. It's the sequel. You're getting
the new Doom.
You're getting a day one sequel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not just a day one patch or day one update. It's a day one sequel. You are downloading a whole second game.
An Xbox exclusive.
Yep.
Doom 2.
What's weird to me about this one is you compare the lack of hype for this game compared to Doom 3 when that came out, and people were just on the edge of their seats wanting to read the very first review for Doom 3. It was a very exciting thing. The game wasn't fantastic, but there was just a ton of hype behind Doom 3. This thing just feels a bit more like it was farted out. It's like just not a huge media campaign and very little chatter about it prior to release, outside of the things you're talking about.
That's true, but I think post-release, at least from Friday on, I've heard a lot of good things about Doom, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in what you've been playing, because I see that game on Phil's list. But
yeah.
I did want to use the Doom having a 47 gig day one update as a springboard to talk about the problems that we have with this generation, like things we don't like about the hardware, or
these kids stay in their music. I just, they're driving around in their rap cars, their baggy clothes.
Yes, and this also sort of got me thinking about the NX, because, as we know, friend of the show Kevin Larrabee has a Larrabee lock on the NX using cartridges. And one of the things that I think people may find inconvenient about this generation is that when you buy a game and you have the disc and you get it home and you pop it in the machine and you have to install it first before you can do anything.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about a system, if the NX ends up using cartridges, you can put that in the machine and start playing immediately, which I think would be a huge benefit. But definitely the installation process.
Why do you think, because they're using cartridges, that's not going to be a problem anymore?
Well, I think it may still be a problem, but you could at least run it off. I think you could probably run it off if they're using like flash memory or whatever. You could probably run
you're talking
it off
installations, not downloadable patches.
Yes, installations, not patches. I do think patches will, of course, always be an issue, but
at only 47 gigs. I mean, that's whatever.
47 gigs. I can't understand. Like, there are countries in the world that have data caps that are really restrictive. If you happen, like, why even release the Xbox One version of Doom in those countries? Then if
you have data caps in Atlanta, don't you?
We do. Yes, sadly.
That's why CJ has 7 internet connections in his home.
It's a 300 gig cap. It's fantastic. So that means if I downloaded Doom and then had to do the one-day patch, that's a third of my internet for the month gone. So.
Ugh, yikes!
Awesome. So I guess I'm going to pose this question to you guys. What are some things that you do not like, or that you wish would be improved in this generation?
You should get rid of day one patches.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. But actually, one thing I think it could be interesting is if you plan on buying the physical version, what's stopping you from being able to like download the day one patch like prior to actually putting the disc in, right?
Are you suggesting that they have a separate store for just day one patches where you can go on and look up patches for games that you may buy?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I feel like that would be a terrible PR move.
That does seem like a very, just from a marketing point of view, you don't want to say.
I suppose you're right.
Yeah.
I suppose.
I mean, I get where you're coming from. I get the convenience of it. Obviously, you can have it downloading the patch while you're waiting for Amazon to arrive, or you can set it up to download while you run to the store to get it. But yeah, I can't imagine a company saying, yeah, let's have a online hub where people can go to download these major inconveniences and advertise it as such.
I was thinking of it more as something like in the PlayStation Store or in the news feed where you can
preloading,
where you can set that you are going to buy the physical disc, and then it would just download the patch. It would just have the patch ready for you.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say one thing that I don't like about this generation is the lack of full backwards compatibility, where especially on my Xbox Live Arcade digital stuff, I would love to be able to actually finish Mark of the Ninja on Xbox One, but at present it's just not compatible. And
that's a really great point.
Yeah, a tied issue, is sometimes it's less technology and more licenses. I had a desire to play kind of an on-the-go Marvel brawler, and so I wanted to download Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 on my Vita, but it is delisted. for licensing purposes. So I have to try to find a GameStop that has a physical version, and thank goodness that at least there is a physical version. But as we're going further into this all-digital space, eventually you'll have games that never got physical, and once they're gone, you can't ever get them again because of licensing.
Yep, that's exactly. I mean, we've talked about this for years. That's exactly my issue with all digital. Like that, the backwards compatibility is huge. Like you see, the 360 Live Arcade was so successful, I ended up with a gigantic library of games. And I mean, there are a fair amount you can play on the Xbox One now, but yeah, I mean, you can't carry them forward. And like you say, delisted, like Outrun is a great example. Like Outrun, fantastic game. Outrun 2, one of my favorite games ever. And I think it was on the 360.
Yeah.
And now you can't download it,
right.
as far as I know.
But they do have Doritos Crash Course or whatever. That is backwards compatible. And I think actually I heard recently that 20% of the Xbox 360 library at this point is backwards compatible, which is actually quite good. And I do hope that Microsoft continues making, especially the digital titles, backwards compatible.
Well, and that becomes actually a fun thing every week, where they just got Star Wars Force Unleashed compatible 1 and 2, and so it's fun to go back to GameStop and see if you can find an old used copy and pick it up. And sometimes you can get them for a song. I got Kane and Lynch 2 for $2 because it was now backwards compatible, and it's kind of fun to have that.
Did you just call Kane and Lynch 2 fun?
Well, it's not terrible. I mean, it's $2.
Terrible.
But the other thing also is, two things I actually love about the current generation. The first is the preloading. I really, really liked that I had Uncharted 4 preloaded and it just launched. That's a huge benefit of digital.
And the day one patch.
Yeah.
Preloaded.
Right, yeah. The other one, the other feature that I think is just fantastic, which is on Microsoft's side, is they have consistently had it where if you're buying one new game, like, say, Rainbow Six Siege, then you get free downloads for Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2. Or you buy Just Cause 3, and there's a free download for Just Cause 2. Same thing, actually, with Fallout, with getting 4 and you get 3. I love that. That's super cool. And even if I don't spend much time playing those games, I love having them digitally in my library forever.
Yeah,
until the next console.
Right.
I like digital pre-orders as well. I do that a lot since I'm basically all digital now. Although I do wish they would do refunds. I wish we would see either Sony or Microsoft take a page out of Valve's playbook with Steam. Last year around this time, Valve offered they started doing Steam refunds, and I think that has worked out fairly well. I would love to see that come to Sony and Microsoft. I doubt it will, but I'd love to see it.
Well, have you noticed, CJ, also that when you buy something digitally, it does change the pace at which you play? Where, like Uncharted 4, for instance, I did buy that digitally just because I wanted the preload, and now I'm playing it at a really relaxed pace. And I don't feel any rush to complete it so I can get the $30 back. I can jump more into the multiplayer if I choose to. I don't feel like I have to turn it around quickly, and that actually changes my pace of play.
See, it's funny. It's funny that you say that, because that's actually one of the things that I hate about this generation is sort of the pressure to play the games as they're new. I love the community. Like I used to love the community aspect of this stuff, but now I feel like if I'm not playing a new game when it gets launched, I'm just missing out.
Yeah.
Most times, not all the time, but most of the time.
Well, and that's a challenge that I have where, I think that while it's great that all 3 platforms now have streaming solutions, I think that Microsoft's streaming is still a bit better than Sony's, and so I continue to choose an Xbox version if I can. And that's great from the standpoint of being able to play on a separate screen, but from a social standpoint, it's rough because all of my other friends are buying the PS4 version.
Yeah. Yeah. And part and parcel with that and the whole community thing is sort of the death of couch co-op.
Yeah.
Which isn't just this generation. That's been happening for quite a while, but I'm it sucks.
I agree.
Yeah, especially when the rare instances where you get it, like a Towerfall was so much fun when that came out, or IDARB,
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else?
Oh, one other little thing that I will say I like, and frankly I have a lot more that I like rather than hate, but I downloaded and played Tabletop Racing World Tour this week.
Oh, yeah,
and that's a game I would never, ever have bought, right? It's from one of the guys who created Wipeout. It's not fantastic, but it's like Micro Machines with a Mario Kart, veneer. And it's worth playing for an hour, and I didn't pay anything for it, and I'm happy I did, and maybe I will not come back to it, But I love that I have that free stuff all the time.
Yeah, that game started out as a mobile game, I believe. Started out on phones. But I agree, and I like the PS Plus program, which of course gives something back to the developers. And I wonder what the sales of tabletop racing would have been like without this promotion. So, I've certainly tried a bunch of indie games that I would not have bought straight up through that.
Yeah.
And I always be sure to log on to Xbox and download whatever the free game is there too, each month. Yeah.
Yep. And before I forget to mention, the last thing that I really do love about this generation actually is the PlayStation Now stuff. I love that massive library of streaming games, and I use it a lot. And right now I'm playing through Assassin's Creed Rogue right now. And it's really neat to be able to have that on my Vita or on my PS3 upstairs or on my PS4 downstairs. It's awesome.
Yeah, I do wish they'd do an HD remake of that game, because that didn't come to the newer generation consoles. But I would say I like PS Now. I do wish that they had some kind of backwards compatibility on the PlayStation platform. Whether that's put in the disc and you can play the game via PS Now or something like that. Like it would be a nice to have. And I know I've said in the past that backwards compatibility doesn't really matter, and I still think it doesn't. But it's a nice to have. For sure, when you want to go back and revisit things. Alrighty.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Shall we get on to what we have been playing?
Sure.
Let's do it. Let's start with Ethan.
Sure. So I wanted to start by thanking you for your recommendation last week on Pocket Jockey. That game is awesome, and it's viral too. I've recommended it to friends who've downloaded it, and my daughter downloaded the demo and then was begging me to download the full game for her. So I have bought 2 copies of the game. But it's just so clever, and it's this wonderful bite-sized experience, and it's unlike anything I've played before. I read one review that was likening it to the kind of catchiness of Tetris, which maybe that's going a bit far, but I can see why someone would say that, because it's really tough to put down when you play. And actually, I want my wife to play it as well. It's just so accessible and so cute and so compelling to play. So again, thanks for that recommendation, and I personally will also recommend that our listeners give that game a chance, because you will not regret that $6.99 purchase.
Oh, yeah, there's a free demo. You don't even have to pay for it up front.
Yeah, Pocket Card Jockey has that free demo, which is like 5 hours long, and get.
Yeah, it's a substantial demo
before buying the game itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I bet you anything their conversion to paying is really good with that game.
I would hope. I really hope. I want Game Freak to continue making interesting games like this and like Tembo the Badass Elephant. I find their non-Pokemon output super interesting, and I want more of that. So, hopefully this sells well. Yeah.
Yep. So, I'm going to touch on a couple of other games before we get to the big one that I'm sure we all want to talk about. But on the smaller side, I was putting a little bit more time into Yoshi's Woolly World, and I just love the look and the feel of that game. When you're bouncing on things, then it feels like the textures have kind of a heft and weight, that's consistent with wool or with something soft and bouncy. It has a feel unlike any other game. Have you guys played Yoshi's Woolly World?
I have.
Yes.
Okay. What were your guys' thoughts on it? Yeah.
I like it a lot. It's a fun, very lighthearted platformer, and I love the visuals. It's something that my daughter can play. It's very accessible, at least the first couple of levels. And I need to get back to that game. I think I put it down after like I think the first or second world I got through, meaning like the first collection of worlds, not first level. But I definitely need to get back to that one. There are a couple games on Wii U that I keep meaning to get back to, and that's one of them.
Yeah, same here.
And for me, it's just that off-screen play option. We always have the Wii U controller just plugged in right next to the chair. So if my wife is watching Pawn Stars or something I don't want to watch, it's very easy to just grab that little, mini tablet and start playing something that's downloaded or is in the machine. And so Yoshi has definitely benefited from that convenience. Speaking of convenience, as I just mentioned a few minutes before, I have started playing Assassin's Creed Rogue on PlayStation Now, and that to me is kind of the great lost Assassin's Creed game, because when that came out, I was focusing on the big boy console version, the Assassin's Creed Unity game that came out then, and never really got to playing this. I actually did end up buying the physical disc on PS3, but again, it's inconvenient for me to play the PS3 now. So this has just been a really good opportunity to get back to it, and it's surprisingly good. I think it's actually better than Unity. It is the same type of ship combat that you had with Assassin's Creed 4, and where year on year it probably would have seemed a little tedious to do the same type of game. It's been a few years since Assassin's Creed 4 for me, so now it's kind of fresh all over again, and really quite fun to play. So, it's also the perfect type of game for the fraction of a second lag you might get in a game on PlayStation Now, because all of the animations for battle and stuff is very forgiving, as is the ship combat, so you don't feel any lag at all. It really plays, whether you're on Vita or on PS4 or PS3, like it's a native game, and so I'm super happy with it.
I wonder, they are doing the Assassin's Creed movie. I don't know if you saw the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
They are not doing a regular big game. I do wonder if there is an opportunity to do like a digital release of Assassin's Creed Rogue HD. Have a tie-in thing, and a lot of people who like the franchise never played Rogue, and it actually reviewed quite well. Questions that I read on that game, including what you... I really would like to go back to Black Flag's ship combat. Black Flag is my favorite. If we could get current gen consoles, I think that would be spectacular.
Yeah. It's definitely one that is worth looking at if you're a fan of the Assassin's Creed games. And then, just a little note on picking up the Arcade Archives Double Dragon, the arcade game. It ages terribly, of course, but and it took me less than 20 minutes to beat the game. But I really like going back and playing some of those games. It just brings back the memory of the ice cream shop, that used to have the game and all of that.
Yeah, I love that series, and Namco just put out a couple of games a few weeks ago as well, with Miss Pac-Man, Big Doug, etc. And I've heard good things about those as well.
Yeah, so definitely pick those up. But of course, a big game is Uncharted 4, which I'm now many hours into. I'm on chapter 12, I think, and it is the game I was hoping it would be.
Now, let's preface with this stuff. I'll put a chapter marker here for people who want to skip over Uncharted talk.
Yeah.
So maybe we can have a slightly spoiler discussion. Not really, because I know, Phil, you have not played too terribly far into it.
I just started chapter 5.
Okay, well you're in a perfect spot. We can do some fun talk about those early chapters and maybe spoil a bit. But if you want to skip, there will be a chapter marker so that you can skip the Uncharted talk. So go ahead, Ethan.
Yeah, the game is effectively an interactive movie. It's entirely on rails, lots of long cutscenes, and I love that. I love it. The characters are interesting. The whole experience is very guided. I like open sandbox games too, but there are times in which I just want to be taken on the journey, and this game does that. you are not the character. Nathan Drake is a flawed character. He lies. He does, mean-spirited things at times. He's killed tons of people. But I think that makes him a more interesting character, and he seems weary in this game. I like his brother, and it just feels very cinematic in the best possible way. I was a film major growing up, and so it doesn't surprise me that the more cinematic games are the games that I like the most.
That explains a lot.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it's for me. People like video games for a lot of different reasons. For me, I think the very best experiences are the ones that tell great stories. I like games more than anything as a storytelling medium, and no game does that better that I've seen. Than Uncharted 4. It's just a great story, well told, with interesting characters, and just awesome set pieces. So the gameplay, when you're getting into it, is really good. The action is very intense. The platforming is suspenseful and exciting. But again, the characters, it's just a treat to come back to those cutscenes because they're so well crafted, and the characters' expressions are incredible. I mean, they just look so real.
Yeah, the cutscenes are just amazing in that game. Although I agree with everything you're saying, but man, like for the first 2 hours, there's a lot of sitting there watching.
Definitely.
A lot of sitting there just watching the other characters. I mean, what you're seeing is great, but yeah, it takes a long time for that game to get going.
Yeah, but I mean, that's true. But they have a lot of fun with there, and there's a lot of novelty to the way they approach that. I mean, the whole thing where you're up in his attic.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was a nice touch.
Yes.
And what immediately follows that is one of the most clever in-jokes. I won't say anything beyond that, but I loved it.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the biggest surprise, and there was just a big grin on my face, like through that entire sequence. One of the best things in that franchise. For sure.
Well, the other thing also is this game is really unabashedly echoing Indiana Jones, more so than the other games. Even his special grapple is effectively Indiana Jones' whip. It works exactly the same way, and I love that. There was, and this is one super minor spoiler, but even some of the banter and dialogue, there's a point where he's talking to his brother, and he's talking about ex-girlfriends, and he goes, "Yeah, bad dates," and it's like I love subtle little Indiana Jones references like that.
I did actually up in his attic see an Indiana Jones hat hanging up.
Saw that too. Yeah, exactly.
Apparently the game's full of little things like that. I haven't seen most of them, I don't think, but
I'll tell you what the one bit there that Ethan was alluding to after you go downstairs in Nate's house.
Just talk about it. We put spoiler warnings on this.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Spoiler if you've not played through Chapter 4.
Yeah. So when Elena busts out the PS1 and you start playing Crash Bandicoot, I just wanted to play the whole game of Crash Bandicoot with those two talking over it.
Yeah.
I was having fun just listening to them too. Yeah.
I also think it's hilarious that Nate's not a gamer.
Well, when would he have played games growing up?
Yep. That's true.
He grew up in an orphanage. He didn't have access to.
Oh, speaking of which, that childhood stuff is great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that whole bit was cool. The tutorial I thought was really well handled.
Yeah.
Yes.
With the stealth stuff, for sure.
Well,
and I think Ethan, you're right about the game being much more like a movie, compelling because of its story. I find the gameplay is still compelling, still great, but there are an awful lot of, hey, I can't get up to that cliff. Like, find a box or something for me to climb on. And somebody on GAF pointed out that you have that rope thing, but you only use it in certain situations. In other situations, you have to find a box.
Well, I mean, of course, it would be great if you always had different ways to solve the problem. That would be fantastic. Yeah. But I can accept that
Me too.
Contrivance. The other thing also is, much as I admire a game like Fallout 4 or Witcher 3, I didn't finish either of them. I will finish Uncharted 4, and a lot of that is because it's just very, very guided, and I know it's going to be about 20 hours. and I'm gonna be very happy to spend the next month playing through the 20 hours.
Yeah, and I liked that the sections. I think the game hides the fact that it's on rails pretty well. I think Uncharted 4 does a better job than the others at that. When there are sections like driving sections, normally I'm like, where the hell do I go? But in this, like it did a good job, I thought, of pointing you in the right direction and keeping the action moving, and you never feel like you're doing the wrong thing. Like, as long as you're paying attention to the subtle color hints that they give you and lighting hints that they give you. I failed a lot fewer times on this game than I did in like Uncharted 2, or I think Uncharted 2 was the one where the helicopter had the helicopter scene with the building falling over or whatever. I like failed a bunch in that, and I have not had any scenes in Uncharted 4 yet where I've had to do anything more than once.
Well, there was a games analyst named Oscar Clark who said that one of the greatest tricks of gaming is when you're confronted with two paths, left and right, and the player takes the right path, which is great because there wasn't actually a left path.
Right.
You know, that you've geared the player and you've guided them in such a way that they feel an openness that's not actually there. It's a great illusion.
Yeah.
How would you, Ethan, I'm curious. I mean, we've talked about, like, you talked about the dialogue, and I'll agree. Like, I absolutely love, I mean, I love the writing in this. I love the dialogue. I love the characters. I think you're right. Like, there's a depth to these characters now that I don't think has been present in the Uncharted games. I mean, you can tell that The Last of Us has happened, and you know, they've sort of brought forward everything they've done there. Like, even Nathan himself, I mean, he's just so well written as this sort of action movie hero who, you know, got the girl and got married, and that life is over now, and he's just so filled with this ton of regret that he's sort of putting on this face that he's not. It's incredible. But you've played through Tomb Raider.
Yep.
Most recent Tomb Raider. How would you compare the gameplay between that game and because I mean they are, for all intents and purposes, they're very much the same game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes and no. I think actually Tomb Raider is a bit more open.
It is open, but I'm talking about the mechanics.
Yeah, sure.
Combat's kind of similar. The you know, the how you get from point A to point B is very similar.
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying I think that they really are differentiated enough to feel like they are two different properties and not one and the same with a different skin. But you know, I think that what's interesting is that whereas in Tomb Raider you have a lot of emphasis on leveling your character, that's a big part of that game. You don't do any leveling in Uncharted, and I don't miss it at all. They spend a lot more time with character relationships building and cutscenes in Uncharted 4, and I'm not only not put off by that, but I like it. It feels richer than Rise of the Tomb Raider. And Rise of the Tomb Raider was my favorite game of last year. I think mechanically it's as good, if not better, than Uncharted 4, but the presentation of Uncharted 4 puts it over the top. And you know, since, again, it's a better interactive fiction, I think it's overall a better product, even if the gameplay isn't quite as good as Tomb Raider.
That's sort of what I was asking, and I would agree with that. I think the gameplay, especially the combat, isn't quite as good as Tomb Raider. I get what they're trying to do a lot of times, but I find like when, especially in the scene that I was just in, I just started Chapter 9 last night, and at the end of Chapter 8, there's this rather, well, there are a few of them, but there's this rather massive fight in these ruins, and I just felt pinned down the entire time. There's just no good way through it, and I had to do it over and over and over again. I had to do that section over and over and over again, and I feel like in this game, when you get sort of confronted with a bunch of enemies at once who are all, you know, packing heat, you just don't have a lot of options, and it bothers me. I feel, unless I'm playing it wrong, but I feel like in a lot of the big battles, any big battles that I've seen so far, you can get yourself sort of painted into a corner, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, I don't feel the ability to fix the problem. Like, even if that means skirting around the edge of something and trying sort of to find a better way to approach battle, it just doesn't always seem to be there. Now there were moments when that did happen. Like there was one battle in particular where you sort of came up to a bridge that you were at the bottom part of. It was just sort of like an arch, and there were a bunch of guys up top, and there was a bunch of tall grass around the bottom. And for a while I could get through that, and then it kind of, like it felt like there was just no way to do what I was doing without getting seen, at least not the first couple times until you can mark the enemy positions, but you need to know them before you can mark them, and it feels like a lot of trial and error. And then there was another battle that I got into very close after that one. I should say, in that first one, I ended up sort of figuring it out. And the end part of the battle was great because I was really like stealthing my way through it, and it was fantastic. But getting to that point was kind of frustrating. And then the battle that I'm talking about that I was dealing with last night was just like, I mean, I must have tried it a dozen times. And the thing is the way that I'm not exactly sure what sets off the autosave, but the way the autosave works, you're just sort of still stuck in that same spot. I was just constantly stuck in that same spot, and I ended up sort of cheesing the battle. Like, it just,
Yeah.
I would hide in tall grass and really hope for somebody to come by, and then I would kill them and then sit there for another 5 minutes, and just a lot of hoping for the best, because if you stuck your head out, you just got murdered, murdered, and you had no other options, and it was really annoying.
Well, and if you think about the importance of immersion and cinematic experience in this game, that is the opposite of being immersed, when you're just having to do the same thing over and over again.
And that's exactly it. And I kept thinking back to Tomb Raider, because I was thinking, like, Tomb Raider, yeah, you had to deal with a lot of upgrading, which I actually really liked, but you had a lot of options in those situations. It's like, okay, like just the fact that you had the bow and arrow was huge in that game, because it's like, I can get a couple stealth kills here. Nobody's necessarily going to see me. It still takes a lot of skill to do it, and I can quickly swap out something else, and I can do hand-to-hand combat. And it wasn't perfect, but it was definitely way more. It was just way more enjoyable experience, I found.
Well, the other thing that's a huge benefit of the open world setup for Tomb Raider is that they were able to then subsequently make the puzzle sequences or the tomb sequences optional. And the benefit of that is they were then allowed to be more intricate, right? So some of the puzzles in Rise of the Tomb Raider are actually real brain teasers on the level of Portal, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So what Uncharted does instead is they are part of the required gameplay. I didn't say critical path, but
we just did.
yes. But no, I mean the way they do it though is they make the puzzles kind of brain dead simple, almost on the level of Resident Evil, to make sure that people don't get stumped because they are obligatory. You have to do them, as opposed to them being a side dish for the people who do like it, which is the way Tomb Raider does it. And I think Tomb Raider's approach to that is better.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as Tomb Raider goes, sort of the open world aspect of it is kind of what almost killed the immersion there, because you would have these little story bits where there was a ton of pressure applied to the characters, and then it's like, oh, but go spend an hour walking around the geothermal valley and hunting bears, and, which I loved, but it kind of killed the flow of the momentum of the story. In Uncharted, they don't have that problem, but yeah, just I feel like so far that the combat mechanics are not up to the task of the levels they've created all the time.
Yeah. But I think what has been interesting for me to look at is this is so far my second favorite game of the year, behind Fire Emblem. And looking at those two games, part of what I love about both of those games, despite the fact that they are really very, very different, is that both have these rich characterizations and interesting flawed characters. So whether you're talking about a top-down strategic RPG or a super rich, cinematic action game, to me, the beating heart is the characters themselves, and that means so much to me. That's why I think, despite all of the excitement that people have for Overwatch, I'm not likely to pick that up, because that's not a character-driven game, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that that's what I want. Like, you better be Nintendo EAB Mario style gameplay if you want to have a game that doesn't have rich characters and still gets me excited.
Yeah, with Uncharted also, they seem to have taken a lot this time from Assassin's Creed, I think, especially marketing the enemies and having that sort of diamond-shaped awareness meter. as well. I was just in an encounter today where I ran around and literally like marked all of the enemies before I marked as many as I could see and took out as many as I could stealth kill, and I only had to face like 2 guys in an actual firefight, which is fantastic. Like I do like those improvements to the combat. I do agree that, especially, I think I know exactly what temple encounter you're talking about, Greg. Like I found that sort of frustrating as well, just because all of a sudden there were a million enemies and I didn't feel like I had a strategy to get to cover, or like a strategy, like a path around the level where I could be fairly sure that someone wasn't going to come up behind me as well and flank me.
And I mean, to be fair, when that system works, it works great, because there's a battle very soon after that one up in sort of a mountain area, a mountainous area. There's a few different plateaus where the way it was set up was fantastic, and I ended up being able to sort of work my way around this gigantic group of enemies. Well, gigantic. It was a fair amount of enemies, and I sort of pulled a few of them off the cliff on my way through, and I was the way that the level was laid out, you could tell when people can see you when they couldn't. And by the time I never really got discovered, but what it was is I actually left a body laying in the middle of one of the plateaus, and somebody saw it. So then, of course, they're all alerted, but then they all sort of rushed over to that area, and I had worked my way to the exit. So it was basically they all ran one way, and I ran the other way, and I passed the encounter. And it seems obvious
that when you, Greg. Yeah. Tell me when you were running away from it, you were doing a little.
Well, no, but it totally seemed to me like that was the experience that this game is built to have. Like, so when it works really great, but when it falls apart, it really falls apart.
Something that's really interesting to me about this kind of game as well is I bet you none of you have actually played the multiplayer, right?
No, and I probably never will.
I'm not Mike Phillips. So no.
Yet another thing I don't like about this generation.
Yeah, that's fair. I just bring it up because I haven't either, and it hasn't been a part of the conversation. And supposedly, it's really good multiplayer. And I imagine, just like Call of Duty, what I will do is I'll finish the game, I'll play the multiplayer for 2 hours just to know what it is and say I did it, and that's it. And I wonder.
Speaking of that, so the trophy system on PS4 keeps track of the percentage of players who have gotten a specific achievement, and apparently, so the simplest multiplayer one to get is completing 5 matches, and it's less than 20%.
Oh, that's an interesting thing to look at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe it's just that people are not looking for a multiplayer experience with Uncharted, which makes perfect sense to me. Obviously, you would have very different numbers if you were talking about Call of Duty Black Ops 3.
Yeah. It could be also that the majority of players right now are focused on the single player and will move to multiplayer, but for right now, it's a low number.
Well, let's double check that number like 2-3 weeks from now, see where it stands.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I think that the game is pretty spectacular. It was worth the wait, and it only kind of makes me regret that we don't see more of these really well-crafted single-player experiences. You get a few a year, but they're expensive to make, and they don't always make their money back. So I guess we have to cherish the ones that we get.
This gets me excited in case they do another Last of Us game. Gets me excited for that because pretty much whatever Naughty Dog does next, I'll be there on day one for sure.
So one bit of criticism though, and again, everything's polished, it all works really well, but you can't help when you're playing a game like this but think, wow, a lot of the kind of action shooter games all just feel like Gears of War now, and it's been that way for a long time. But you look at the mechanics of this, or Last of Us, or Grand Theft Auto, or Gears of War, or Kane and Lynch. I mean, they all feel the same.
Sure, you walk into an area full of waist-high cover, and it's like, okay, I'm about to have a big fight.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I think that the one challenge is that while this game does it just as well, if not better than the best, it is starting to feel a little bit rote. mechanically. Because when you went from PS2 to PS3, you didn't have that. It was, Gears of War was the game, kill switch aside, that actually introduced that and made it popular. Think about the fact that action games during the PS2 era didn't have that cover shooter mechanic. But now that it's been introduced, everyone does it, and it does give games in the action shooter space a feeling of sameness that can become a bit tiresome.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. I wonder, since now it seems like every AAA game is built off the engine from the previous AAA game, if that'll change, and where we'll start to see change within the genre. I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe this is why I did feel like a game like Bayonetta or even The Witcher was a bit of a fresh approach, because those are generally going to be more melee brawler based. So it's less about cover and it's more about attacking directly the characters.
Let me ask you guys this.
What's that?
With Uncharted, do you guys notice any differences in the storytelling or the gameplay that would potentially be a result of the creative team switch up that happened during development?
No, Amy Hennig.
Yeah.
The only thing I could say, I'd forgotten that switch up happened during development. The only thing I can say is that it seems to me very clear that the same people who did The Last of Us are doing this.
I'd say that's true, yeah.
So it does feel different. That's what I was getting at before. I think the characters have way more depth now than they ever have in the series. The series has always had really good characters. Yeah, but that whole opening scene, it also means that they're way more long-winded. But that whole scene at home, especially when Nathan goes downstairs and he sits down and has
they get dinner first.
The moment. Yeah, I was playing the game just this afternoon, and Dana was sitting there watching, and yeah, we get to the point where your mission quest is to go get a couple bowls of stew or whatever you're making, and I'm standing there at the couch about to give dinner to my wife, and I'm just like, video games, folks.
That's what I'm saying, right? You look at moments like that again. They're kind of they play out a little bit too long for sort of the game that I was expecting, but at the same time, they're really sweet. They're really grounded.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very and you can. There's an undertone in that too. You can tell that she knows that he's not really happy in the life they've got right now, but he's really putting on a brave face, and he's trying to play the really good husband, and it doesn't feel phony. None of it feels phony.
Well, and actually, I think that stuff, it's almost surprising we don't see more of it, given how effective it can be in building your personal connection to the characters. Of course, Last of Us, you have the whole thing with the daughter and the birthday and the watch at the start, right? And that comes back in a powerful way later. Yeah, but I think also about even Starbreeze's Darkness 2. Do you remember that? I think it was the second one where it was a couple that was just sitting and watching television, right? And that quiet moment was really important to build a relationship with the female, so that when she was killed later on, it had impact.
That scene felt so realistic that you're almost waiting for it to break into the "do you want to have a baby" talk.
Yeah.
Kid.
I was waiting for that merely because if Sony wants to continue the franchise, they're going to have
Son of Drake.
Yeah.
Played by Shia LaBeouf.
Oh God.
Well, I'm glad that scene didn't end with a God of War style,
Wow. See, you and I are saying kind of the same thing, but you're just being crass.
Shaking the vase,
Not okay.
Yeah, press triangle harder.
Oh man!
I'll tell you the other thing. That house had way too many bathrooms on the second floor.
Oh.
How many did they have? There was two, right?
But they were both attached to bedrooms.
There's one off.
Weird.
Yeah. Did you mess around with it? You can make Nathan piss in the shower, actually.
You what? What?
You can make him do it in the sink too. everyone knows that's the second toilet for when your wife is on the shitter. You just piss in the sink. Everybody knows that, right?
And the one downstairs bathroom, you can actually toss one off, and she just like starts pounding on the door.
None of that is real.
I'm extremely disappointed in both of you.
What?
Very disappointed.
Ethan a little more than Phil.
Well.
All right. Should we move on?
Boy.
Should we move on from Uncharted?
Yep.
Okay. Phil, you were playing the other big game this week.
Yeah. Doom. So I found out why they did not send out review code to the press beforehand.
What's that?
In the game blows. Doom, more like do not play this game because it stinks like yesterday's Nathan Drake droppings.
In the sink.
It's that bad.
Wow.
No, it's actually friggin' fantastic. Holy free holy.
Okay.
It's I have no idea why they didn't send those review codes out early, because it is a really good game, and like everyone seems to think so.
Well, I think part of it, I've been reading up a little bit. I guess the beta, which was multiplayer focused, people didn't really respond.
Right, yeah,
to that.
Yeah, people were not happy with that, but
and I do think in a game like Doom, I think reviewers may have focused on that multiplayer experience, but from everything that I'm hearing, the single player is absolutely fantastic, right?
I'm not a big FPS guy.
Right.
And I don't get into the Calls of Duties and the Black Ops and the Halos, but holy cow, do I friggin' love the old school Doom and Doom 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I was disappointed with Doom 3 back in the day. It was not the game I wanted. So when I saw they were doing a new Doom, I was pretty excited, really, really wanted it to be good, really wanted to like it. And then, of course, I started hearing that the multiplayer is not that great, which, and again, I'm not playing Doom for the multiplayer. I'm playing it for the run around giant maze-like levels and shooting lots of monsters.
Yeah.
I'm not, just to go against what Ethan was saying, I'm not playing it for the rich story.
The narrative.
Yeah, that's not what I'm looking for out of Doom.
Although I will say, so I've watched a lot of videos. It has the Optimus Prime voice actor, right?
That is not Peter Cullen.
Peter Cullen?
It's someone trying to do a Peter Cullen.
They do a really good job.
Yeah, I actually I don't know if. Why are you paying attention to the Doom story? But yeah, I guess he's like the bad guy or something. But he goes, "I'm ready to go, and you need to go kill some monsters." And I was, what's that?
I like the story, and you're right. Like, who cares about the story in a Doom game? But it seems so over the top dumb that it has elevated it to awesome level. Like,
right. No,
the computer is telling you to deal with demonic forces that have invaded. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, they one of the first things you do is you find a computer terminal, and it's just flashing a big warning that's like demonic invasion in progress or something like that, where clearly they had those parameters programmed into the computer, so just in case there is some sort of demonic invasion, they can alert the facility.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did look up on IMDb to see if that was indeed Peter Cullen, and it is not just someone doing. It's one of those situations where it's like Peter Cullen was like maybe too expensive, so they just Hey, Tim, can you do an Optimus Prime voice? sorta, kinda, I guess.
Let's
get you into the booth.
I like the mix of, I mean, the graphics are amazing. I feel like, really especially nice. This year, nice we have gotten to the point where the visuals in these games are really feeling next gen. And
well, it seems like every month you're hearing people say, "Oh, this is hands down the best looking game ever." I mean, weren't we saying that a couple weeks ago about Ratchet?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
And now we're saying it about Uncharted and
now Doom.
Yeah,
but the visuals, the sound design is crazy good, and the music is crazy good. Like, it's so tense even just watching videos of the gameplay. Like, and I think this is one that would give me motion sickness, so I'm not looking to buy it. Maybe I'll Redbox it, but it really looks amazing. I don't know when I'd be able to play it because I'd have to.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
well, so Phil, you're not a
kids to sleep.
You're not a shooter guy, so I'm surprised that you got. And sorry to cut you off, CJ, but
sometimes you have to.
Sometimes you do.
I mean, since you're not somebody who picks up every Call of Duty, or I don't even think you got Halo, did you? The Halo 5?
He doesn't have an Xbox One.
For that Xbox One, I don't own.
Right. But I mean, so why this one?
I keep trying to put it in my Wii U and it's not loading. I think the disc is defective.
But why Doom for you?
Well, there's certainly nostalgia for Doom. Doom and Doom 2 were some of my favorite games back in the day on the PC, and to a slightly lesser extent, the PS1 version of Doom was really great. And I like that particular style where it is more of a wide open sort of maze-like environment that you're in, running around trying to find the key cards, backtracking to get to the new areas, looking for all the little secret passageways and hidden doors and that sort of thing. And then the big sort of rushes of enemies where you have just a swarm of monsters attacking you and you're just constantly kind of running backwards, unloading shotguns into them and that sort of thing.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, it makes me also wonder, like, when you're talking about the importance of nostalgia and all that, I've heard rumor that there is going to be a John Romero Kickstarter at some point. And if that's the case, if those two are kind of coming together outside of id, making a new game, it's like, what is id then? They have the brands, but because id used to be part Doom, creator, part just a middleware manufacturer, right? Because people wanted to get the Doom engine. But what are they now? Like, what is their identity as a studio? And does it change at all?
It seems like it's upkeep of those franchises from the past, like Wolfenstein and Doom.
Yeah.
And Bethesda owns those now, and they're using the id label to market those.
Well, and the Wolfenstein New Order was the New Order, right?
id?
Yeah.
Was New Order id though?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was really damn good.
It was good,
I need to go back and actually finish that.
And the Romero Carmack Kickstarter, they started it and then canceled it. It launched once already, and I guess they're going to reboot it later in the summer.
Okay.
So, but it's not the Carmack that you're thinking of. It's a different Carmack, and I don't think they're related.
Okay.
So.
Oh, okay. Here's the other thing also. Wolfenstein New Order was developed by Machine Games and published by Bethesda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that not the same as Doom? I don't know. But anyway, they're using id Software as a sort of label now more, it seems.
Okay. That makes sense.
But it's good. It's good there, Phil.
It's fantastic.
So how much have you gotten to play it? And do you play it with Finn in the room?
Of course.
For God's sake.
I mean, Finn's more of a Quake fan, so No, I do not play it with Finn in the room. Finn knows that game is too scary for him.
That's right.
I'm not you, CJ. I don't abuse my children through media.
I don't either.
Uh-huh. So anyway, and I have only had the chance to play the first level so far. So
all right.
But I figure that's enough for EGM. It's enough for
this podcast,
for Player One podcast. Yeah, but it's one of those situations where I can only play it at night when Finn's in bed. So, and I've been trying to juggle that and Uncharted as well. But it's really good so far. Weapons are really satisfying. Really solid shotgun blasts. Again, the swarms of monsters coming at you. The secrets. Being able to explore the levels, looking for extra goodies that unlock different little bonuses for you, and just pretty cool stage layout. I guess it gets even better as it goes on from what I've been reading online. I guess a lot of verticality. Is that a word?
Verticality.
Mm-hmm. Verticality in the map design. So it just it feels like the old school Doom games just brought into the modern day. Awesome. Much more so than Doom 3 did. So I'm really glad I picked it up.
So there's still no score as we are recording this on Sunday on Metacritic. There's only 2 reviews that are up. So Phil, 1 week from today, when there is an aggregate review, what do you think it's probably going to be? Let's guess and see how close we can get.
What do I think it's going to end up? Let's say 85.
Okay. I am going to guess based on what you're saying and based on reticence over the lack of review code being sent out, that it's going to be a 76. That's my guess.
Okay.
I'm going 83. Just guys, right in the middle.
I don't know, 80.
Okay, so here's one.
I bid $1. $1. I bid $1.
Yeah.
Here's the thing to keep in mind, though, because one of the jobs that I had to do when I was in Sega as a creative director was estimate Metacritic scores and assume what it's going to be. And we had to explain to folks internally that in order to get, say, an 85, you have to get lots and lots of 9s to be able to get that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we'll see. We'll see who's closest.
Yes.
All right.
Nice.
Do we want to talk about any other games before moving on to tweets? I think.
Well, you know what? I'm just gonna mention this. I picked up a new Vita game. Well, first of all, have you guys heard of this? Have you heard of this Vita system? It's like a portable PlayStation system. Yeah, and there's some games that they occasionally publish for it.
Okay. Tell us.
And I got a game, and the weird thing is, and it's kind of hard to find these, but they made a game for this Vita device that does not involve scantily clad anime 12-year-olds.
That's amazing.
Which is weird. I picked up Severed.
Oh, nice.
You heard Severed?
Yeah, from Drinkbox Studios.
The good folks at Drinkbox Studios, the makers of Guacamelee, put out a new game. I'm really enjoying it. It's kind of a simple little game. It's a sort of a dungeon crawler in the old school vein, where you're sort of going just from room to room, and it's very old fashioned in that it's not set up like a FPS where you're constantly going through the halls. It is very much there's kind of a fade transition when you move from room to room, and you are finding treasure and keys to unlock doors and getting your way through the maze and having monster encounters. And the monster encounters are all touchscreen controlled.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so you are fending off monsters with swipes. It's kind of a dungeon crawler meets Fruit Ninja, I guess, because you're fighting these different monsters, and they have different attacks that you can counter if you're quick enough, and you have to break through their defenses and that sort of thing. And then the gimmick is that once you get their energy down, you have a split second where you can slice off their limbs, and usually these monsters have multiple limbs, so you can earn body parts which you use to upgrade your skills and things like that. And it is actually a pretty cool little game. It's the visual style, it looks very much like Guacamelee.
It sounds almost like No More Heroes.
You know what? I never actually played No More Heroes, so
oh, okay.
I have no reference to that, but it's really cool. I'm enjoying it, certainly. Those drink boxers know what they're doing. So
yeah, it's funny. I picked up my Vita for the first time in a couple of months, actually. This past week, started to play Danganronpa, which I really, really enjoy that game. But also because I've been enjoying Uncharted so much that I want to go back to playing Golden Abyss again, which if I start that one up again, it will be the third time I've played through that game, and it's fun and it's great to have that on the go, but it still makes me incredibly sad that we never got a sequel to that and never will. It's like, I should be playing Uncharted 3 on Vita right now, or like the third in that series, and instead I just have to keep playing the first one over and over again, which sucks.
Indeed.
Yes.
All right, should we move on to tweets?
Let's do it.
Let's do at least one tweet. We gotta do that, right?
Out the dark.
All right. How about this one from hacker alias J Lateralis? And they say, favorite puzzle game that isn't Tetris.
Panel de Pon.
Planet Puzzle League.
/ Tetris Attack / Planet Puzzle League.
Yeah.
Does Picross count?
I was going to ask the exact same thing.
I think that counts, yeah.
Then that would be my answer.
Yeah, I'd have to say.
Where's Picross, though?
It's a 3D one.
3D?
I want another 3D Picross.
I'm going to say 2D Picross. Although Panel de Pon is up there.
I'm going to say Luminous.
Ugh.
Killing me.
Nope.
Ugh.
I liked the Vita one. Vita one was good.
I liked Meteos.
Meteos is good. It's not as good as Luminous, but it's good.
They're doing a.
Well, it's actually. It's better than Luminous because it actually has gameplay and is not crushingly boring. It's not. It's not a fancy audio video demo attached to the dullest puzzle game on the planet. But
wow.
Dun dun dun.
Wow.
Well, it's accurate.
Let's hope James Milky doesn't listen to the show.
Take away the graphics and music, and Luminous is dull, dull, dull. You know what I do? You know what I love?
I get that, because people who suck at Luminous, they always say that, and I feel for them.
Well, I love playing a puzzle game for half an hour before it gets to a pace where it becomes interesting.
It's like the Final Fantasy 13 of puzzle games.
Fair. That is actually a fair criticism. I will give you that.
That's the problem with it.
They're doing Lumines on mobile phones this year. I think they've done it before, but they're doing a new thing this year, and it looks like they're trying to take a page out of Candy Crush's book, where it's very bright and colorful and much more casual in design. I saw an image from it and was pretty interested in the metamorphosis that it seems to have gone through. Yeah, be interesting to see how well that does. All right.
You know what? I'm gonna toss this out there real quick.
What's that?
Not what it's certainly up there, but kind of a dark horse. I really liked Puzzle Fighter.
Oh yeah.
Puzzle Fighter was pretty good.
Yeah, I actually really like Puzzle Fighter. Yeah.
Really, honestly, nothing's better than Tetris. I know it's just. I love Tetris, and I've never really been into any other puzzle game at that level ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Not even Tetris Attack? Not even the Planet Puzzle League? No? Oh, I was so into.
I'm not into the color matching games in general.
I'm
not good at them. Like.
actually a bit off of that beaten path of the Mario Mini and Donkey Kong games. The puzzle mechanics there, if you're considering those puzzle games, are quite good.
So you mean Lemons?
Yeah. But I'm talking more about what is it called? The one that was most recently on 3DS. Where you're creating the route for him in 3D. Yeah. Those are pretty great.
Yeah, I mean they're kind of lemmings, but
yeah,
that's what they're based on.
Yeah.
Hacker alias Rich Grisham says, "What's your max number of day one full price release purchases this year? I think I'm less than 10, maybe less than 5."
I don't think I've done a day one full price release purchase in a couple of years because I keep doing those discounted pre-orders.
That's true.
Yeah, but that kind of counts. That sort of counts. It's the
if that
same
counts,
spirit.
then it's really high, but I haven't paid full price for any of it. So.
Right.
And being in Canada now, I don't want to, because you're pushing $100. So.
Ugh.
Right.
Yikes.
I still get most games I'm interested in. I get on day one usually.
I usually do too.
Yeah.
Although I'll try and finagle deals when I can, certainly.
Yeah, and with the Amazon deals and Gamers Club Unlocked, there's a good amount of discounts you can get day one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I started the year finishing the games I didn't have a chance to finish, like Metal Gear Solid 5. This year, Fire Emblem, I got day one. I did get Street Fighter 5 day one. Let's see, Far Cry Primal, The Division. So I guess I actually have quite a few. Ratchet and Clank. We were just talking about Uncharted, which is day one. Zelda Twilight Princess, I got day one.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's going to be more than 10 for me.
Just see Twilight Princess going down in price pretty quickly, huh? On Amazon.
What is it at now?
It's like Amazon has with the amiibo. It's down to like $38, I think.
Jeez,
oh wow!
Yeah.
I would consider it at that price.
It's a great deal. Great game. Really.
Yeah.
Half right.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
All right. Hacker alias Gamer Goalie says, "Am I the only one that's a sucker for remastered games on the new consoles? They look so nice. How about you?"
I like remasters. I don't like how it's gone for the most part the beginning of this generation where there were remasters of games that literally came out like a year earlier.
Right, yeah.
I'm not down with that.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is if you don't want it, then obviously you're not going to get it, but it doesn't hurt to have it up there, and if you missed it, like Dishonored I missed, and so I was super happy to get that.
That's great. I don't think. I'm just saying the spirit of the question. I don't care that they exist.
Right.
For people that miss them, that's fantastic. But I'm saying, like, I will go out and get an HD remake of a game I really like, but not at the pace that they got released earlier this generation.
I really like the way that Ratchet and Clank was done, where it's a sort of a reimagining. I did pick up The Last of Us Remastered, but I haven't played through that again. I definitely will at some point. And we were talking about a little earlier, if Assassin's Creed Rogue comes out as a remastered thing, I would totally be into that. I'm into remasters. I bought Twilight Princess.
Yeah,
see, Twilight Princess is fine.
There's been a long gap, obviously, with that, but for me, the biggest selling point is if it's something that, like Dishonored or Resident Evil 6, for that matter, that I just did not play in the prior generation.
Oh, yeah.
So, and Resident Evil 6, I know it has its dissenters and for good reason, but when they will give you a package disc for $20, that's a pretty good deal.
Totally.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's a little worse when you're paying like $40 or $50 for these things.
I was a big fan of what Sony was doing on the PS3 with the Ratchet and Clank collection, the Sly Cooper collection, and Jack and Daxter. Like, that was great. HD and in some cases 3D. I don't know if they all were, but some of them were, and and I was really into that too. So.
Oh, what about the rare retro one?
Yeah, Rare Retro, that's great too.
Rare Replay.
Yeah, Rare Replay, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Or a lot of the stuff that Sega's done.
Yep. Oh, the 3D classics.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I think that's it.
Cool.
Alrighty, and that is our show for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you have a question for us or would like to comment on something you heard, you can direct that to @P1Podcast on the Twitter, or you can go to our internet website at player1podcast.com. There you'll find our contact information. You'll find blog entries about Sega CD stuff from Mr. Seward.
It's me.
Yep. Generation 16 episodes as well.
I'm like halfway through episode 18.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Sitting at 22 minutes so far.
Very, very nice. And you'll find a message board where you can discuss this episode with us and our other listeners.
If you'd like to subscribe to the Player One Podcast, you can do so by visiting player1podcast.com or by going to the iTunes Music Store. While you're at the iTunes Music Store, you can also invest $1.99.
Cheap. Oh, Einhorn. He's stepping on. Oh, man. You know what?
Someone's off the show.
Post-show meeting. We got to have a post-mortem on this one.
Yeah. Ethan, you don't need to show up for this one. Pick up the Player One Podcast iPhone application. Gives you one-touch communication with us via the emails, the Twitters, what have you. You also have all of our episodes ready to stream right to your listening device. And hey, Android telephone users, the Player One Podcast iPhone application is available for your listening devices with that same $1.99.
Also cheap.
You can find that right over there at the Amazon Android Marketplace. We're also on Stitcher Radio. You can like us on Facebook. You can watch archives of our shows and watch us broadcast live most weeks on the YouTubes. YouTube.com/P1 Podcast. Follow our Twitter account to find out when we'll be broadcasting our next live show. And if you like what you heard, and how could you can head over to Patreon.com/P1 Podcast to donate a few shekels to keep the lights on here. It also helps CJ. What does it help CJ do? Well, CJ steals the money. Is basically what it's the joke I'm gonna make. Is CJ just takes the money and uses it for his own ends. So there's that. No. And if you have a couple bucks left over afterwards, you can head over to generation-16.com. There you will find a Patreon link to help support Greg Seward's fantastic Generation 16, the #1 show on Greg's YouTube channel about the Sega Genesis system.
Thank you.
It's oddly specific.
Yeah. You're welcome. CJ!
Yes!
Thank you very much for all that you do.
Well, thank you, Phil. You know we have an Instagram account, too, now. People can...
Oh, do we?
Nice.
P1 Podcast on Instagram. If you
so is that more sexy pictures of us?
Totally. It's all sexy pictures.
You can also find us on Tinder.
Adult Friend Finder.
Yep. We're on all of those. Well, we signed up because we are all adults, right? That's the one we have to use.
We friends too. Yeah.
Yeah. We're all adults. We're friends. That's what I figured it was, officer.
Why were the police involved? What were you? I don't even.
Greg, thank you. Thank you,
welcome.
Greg.
Thanks for having me.
And Ethan.
Yes, sir.
Thank you to an extent.
Thank you.
To an extent.
Wow.
And I guess we'll see everyone next week.
Probably fewer people next time.
Well, so long, folks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.